Josh, you're muted.
There you go. All right, start it over. Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. Um, I've had a very heavy heart this this morning with everything that's going on in Israel. I've got some dear friends over there, and it also just reignites something that's been happening for over 1,000 years between two religions that have the same father in Abraham, and how ridiculous it is. So when these type of things happen, I go back to the spiritual leaders that I love and adore. One of my favorites is, of course, Dr. Martin Luther King. And I read his speeches because obviously he was alive in a time of a lot of turmoil. And in his speech, Beyond Vietnam, A Time to Break Silence, which is just such an incredible speech. There's actually a recording of it that I've listened to before. I read it this morning, but I've listened to it many times before because I just love hearing his voice. It's quite long, but still very worth it. But in essence, he talks about so many great things. But ultimately, he talks about the power of love and how hate will destroy us, which obviously is a theme of many of his speeches, but specifically very poignant in this one. And then I think about Gandhi, who said that we must be the change that we want to see in the world. Because ultimately, when these type of conflicts happen, whether it be in Ukraine or now in Israel, it's really a time to ask ourselves, like, what are we doing here? Like, why do we continue to, hate each other and do these type of horrific acts? Some of the things that happened in Israel in the last 24 hours is just incredibly horrific. Men or women and children, dying, being kidnapped, things like this. And ultimately, these acts will continue to happen until we can have more love for each other, until we can actually see each other as our brother and our sister. But just to say, oh, let's just love each other more, that's very kumbaya to me. Because ultimately it's like, well, what does that mean? And of course we can then go back to the teachings of the man that they call Jesus the Christ, and his teachings about love. But how do we, in a practical way, actually create more love in each and every breath, in each and every day within us? Because there's so much on the line right now. Those of you that are familiar with Atlantis, you know that there were 3 destructions. And Edgar Cayce, who is one of the greatest mediums ever to walk on this planet, back in the 1920s, he said that every soul that has been incarnated from 1900 on were a part of the Atlantis soul family. And we are speeding up to our first destruction. And those of you that that don't know me or know my work. I've made many predictions that have come true, most notably and most publicly, that has been recorded on the radio, is back in 2018. I predicted in 2020 that there would be some type of health destruction, as well as the stock market going down, and many other things that coincided, with what later became called COVID. So I've got a good track history of these things. And so I will say that by 2050, the first destruction will happen. And what my spirit guides have told me about this destruction is that it is at this point, it is nothing that we can stop. At this point, it's just a question of how many will die. And it will make COVID look like a sunny day at the beach. In fact, when COVID occurred, my spirit guide showed me us getting on the on-ramp. That COVID was actually the on-ramp to what will be coming down the line. On-ramp, like on a freeway, so to speak. And so we're not even in the slow lane yet on the freeway. And we deserve it. We really deserve it. And we deserve it because the universe is always in balance. It's always in justice. And we deserve it because ultimately this is what, as a human species, is what we want. We want to die. And if we wanted anything else, we would see something else. We want to die because in a deep subconscious level, we feel that we are separate from the divine. We are separate from our true self. And what is our true self? Our true self is oneness. Our true self is knowing who we are as God and goddesses. And because of this separation, we yearn to reconnect to this oneness. And ultimately, that means leaving the body. Neale Donald Walsh has said roughly the same thing in his book, Conversations with God, because we are always creating our experience, whether it's individually or as a collective consciousness. And what Neale Donald Walsh says in Conversations with God is that whether we're eating French fries or some type of sugar, I'm paraphrasing what he said, or putting a gun to our head, time does not matter. What matters is the intention of either putting poison into our body, which then results in death, or putting a gun to our head. Those both had the same intention, which is death. Last night, with the Israeli thing happening and the Dodgers getting slaughtered, I wanted to do some emotional eating. So I ordered Chick-fil-A and I had an Oreo cookie shake and their fries and a frosted lemonade. I had that like at 11 o'clock at night. In that moment, there was some type of subconscious yearning, to numb the pain, have some fun, food comfort, all of that. But still, ultimately, I was putting things into my body that showed that I did not want to live in that moment. And of course, these things can change, breath by breath, minute by minute. Um, obviously, having that type of food once in a while is better than every day, but it still does not serve the body temple. And so anytime that we're not working out every day, which to me is a spiritual practice, anytime that we put these type of poisons in our body, anytime that we speak negatively about ourselves and not recognizing the perfection of the God and Goddess that we are acting from a place of separation, and from a deep subconscious level, we yearn to die. So what fixes this? And I say all of this because this collective consciousness desire to die is why the first destruction is happening, because we are wanting it. And then there'll be a second destruction, and then a third destruction. And the third destruction will be the end of our human species if we do not choose to live. In my second, I believe it was my second, it was either my first or my second ayahuasca experience, my spirit guide showed me the third destruction. And it was a meteor coming from the sky. And they showed me the number of 8 million, that 8 million souls will be alive for the third destruction. And you think about that, where right now we're over 8 billion people right now. And by the third destruction, there will only be 8 million. And what they told me was that even a second before impact, if those 8 million in their collective consciousness wanted to live, that meteorite would not wipe them out. So because of this, I do have faith in our human species that we will survive. There is some evidence of this, of different people who channel humanoids from the future. Bashar is probably the most famous of these. And because of these channeling, it proves that there is a future of our human species that will survive. So I do believe that we will survive. The question is, how many people survive and then recreate the dawning of the true Aquarius age? Because the Aquarius age is coming in and integrating like an energetic field day by day. And if we do not surrender as a human species to this Aquarius age, there will become a conflict between the Taurus age and the Aquarius age. And this conflict will create destruction. And so from a spiritual level, it really doesn't matter if we choose peace, ease, and grace in accepting this Aquarius age and us evolving with this Aquarius age, or if it means many humans being wiped out. And that wiping out equates to the Taurus age being removed from our consciousness so that the Aquarius age can come in. On a spiritual level, it does not matter. Either we'll get there either through pain or through insight. But on the mental, emotional, and physical level, it will matter. If you, I love reading history. And so, reading about, the plague, and what happened in Europe, and just the horrific descriptions, of bodies just being, of so many deaths that just bodies were just piled up, in the streets and in the town square and all this. That's what we're going to be heading into. And that is why it is so important for those of us that call ourselves spiritual to hold a greater light, to hold a greater light within ourselves so that we can hold the light for humanity. And truly nothing else matters, because we are really talking about the survival of our species now. Now, a lot of people will talk about, oh, save Mother Earth and all that. That's a very narcissistic term. Not saying those people are narcissistic, but just saying, oh, we need to save Mother Earth. That is a narcissistic phrase. Because what people are basically saying is that, oh, well, if humans die, then Earth's going to die, or we're going to destroy Earth. No, like, we don't have the power to destroy Earth. Mother Earth is a powerful, powerful being. And Mother Earth has had many, many species become created and also destroyed. And if we do not choose to live in harmony with Mother Earth, we will be destroyed. Because Mother Earth will always come back to balance. And if we continue to live as a human species as a cancer to Mother Earth, then Mother Earth will seek balance by destroying us. And so it is not about saving Mother Earth, because Mother Earth will be just fine with or without us. Like, we don't offer anything to Mother Earth that Mother Earth doesn't already have. Like, it's just, people really need to stop saying, save the planet. No, dude, like, save our species. Mother Earth is going to be just fine. So it really comes down to us saving ourselves, us recognizing that we are just a human experiment. That's all we are. Not even a human experiment. We're just an experiment. That's all we are. And this experiment can be wiped out, and then Mother Earth will create, through the oneness and the I am and the God, goddess power of existence and life, another experiment. And yes, are we an evolution of life? Yeah, we are. What ancient doctrine teaches us is that if you look at a circle, and then at 6 o'clock at the bottom of that circle is where the mineral kingdom, actually, let me go back. If you look at noon, or 12 o'clock, the top of that circle, when it moves counterclockwise, that is the involution of spirit into matter. I could describe that, but we're going to be here for another 3 hours if I do. And then the evolution of spirit in matter starts at 6 o'clock, and it starts at the mineral kingdom. And then it moves again counterclockwise up to the plant kingdom. And then again counterclockwise up to the animal kingdom. Then counterclockwise up now to the human kingdom, and then another counterclockwise up back to 12 o'clock, God kingdom. So I say this because we are an experiment between animal and God consciousness, goddess consciousness. We are part God goddess, and we are part animal. And the evolution of our species is about, do we choose animal or do we choose spirit? That's what this is all about. Every breath, every choice that we are making individually and that we are making as a collective consciousness. Are we doing it from the animal, or are we doing it from spirit? And the animal obviously is about fear. It's rooted in fear. It's rooted in survival. It's rooted in lack. It's rooted in separation. And obviously, the spirit consciousness is love. The spirit consciousness is recognizing that we all are one, and thus what I do to my brother or to my sister, I do to myself. So we can walk around all day long saying, oh, we need to choose love. We need to choose this. To me, that's kumbaya. What really, day to day, allows us to be more loving? Well, the absolute answer is reconnection. I say reconnection, even that's not the right term. We are already connected. The better term would be awareness of our connection. And I've had many, through transcendental meditation, through ayahuasca experiences, many times of this experience of oneness, this experience where nothing matters and I'm just blissed out. And then I return from these experiences so high, so filled still with bliss, but yet not completely in bliss anymore. And then as the days go on, as the weeks go on, the memory and the experience fades. And then before you know it, I'm back to being human. So then I try to build my body temple, both spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically, to hold this light that I felt, to increase the wattage that I can experience in my day-to-day breath. I have built my life around complete freedom so that I can dedicate each and every day to this. Do I? No. Because I get distracted. There's a lack of discipline on my part. I recently just did a ceremony, I think now 10 days ago now. And it was 15 and a half hours of constant communication with my spirit guides, no breaks, constant communication, constant conversation. It was a good ceremony, but they nitpicked every single aspect of my life in terms of what I needed to improve on. And I'm not going to go too much, into the details because that'll be another hour or so. But in essence, there's so much work to do. And I love it because I love growing. But as they went through my 7 dimensions of wellness, my spiritual, my mental, my emotional, my physical, my professional, my relational, my financial, there's so much, so many details, so many things that I can, tighten the bolts on. And when I say nitpick, they started out with, "You don't love us." Like, that's what they said. Now, they did say it in a very funny way, which was great. They've never done that with me before. Like, I was cracking up the entire time while they were telling me the truth. But it was such the detail of, you look at your investments, even if it's just a quick second, like, oh, where are the investments at before you go meditate, you know? Like, while I'm walking out to go meditate into my patio, I'm looking at my phone going, "Hey, what's the market doing this morning?" And they're like, "That means that you love your investments in the markets more than us because you're putting that first." A little tangent there. But the point being is to myself, build the foundation of myself to where I can hold that bliss, that oneness, that connection longer and longer and longer before it fades. Now, there are many ways to connect with our true self, to connect with our divine self. It doesn't have to be through ayahuasca. It doesn't even have to be through meditation. It can be going out into nature. It can be sharing time with your kids or your grandkids. It can be through a true loving soul relationship with another. There's so many ways to connect. There's so many ways to feel moments of bliss, moments of joy, moments where you are so happy to be alive. And then this joy, this love of life will then be the fuel to make better choices because you want to be on this planet longer, because you want to be here. This concept is, as I think I'm turning 47 this December. Um, this concept of how long do I want to be on this planet, is becoming a little bit more prevalent in my mind. And I know in my last birthday, I'm either turning 46 or 47. I think it's 46. Hopefully not. I hope it's not 47. Anyway, um, and so my last birthday, I told Spirit, I said, I want to live till 90 or, into at least 90, but I want to have vitality. I want to, be of sound, mind and body and all this type of thing. So this choice now to live to that age and have all of my vitality intact, in essence, make is based off of each choice that I make today, each choice that I make tomorrow, and truly loving my life and making choices from that love. Did I make that choice last night when I ordered Chick-fil-A? No, I didn't. but we fail forward, as John Maxwell would say. Because when we come from a place of connection, then we come from a place of connection, experience joy, love our life, and then that love now radiates and permeates and is shown in action with others. The more that we are happy and enjoy each and every breath, the more we will choose joy when someone is acting out of ignorance. I do not have any earth in my zodiac chart. None. So discipline is a very work in progress for myself. If someone were to observe me, they would say that I do have discipline. I have discipline in my spiritual practice. I have discipline when it comes to money, to name a couple of things. But in truth, I don't. Someone might say that it's discipline, but to me, I know better. What I have with money in my spiritual practice is a deep, profound love. So I don't need discipline. I don't need structure. I don't need someone or, you know, I don't need people or my spirit guides or whatever telling me to do these things because I love doing it. I once wrote an article many, many years ago that was titled, "Structure is for the uninitiated." The uninitiated. And what I meant by this term, not that structure is wrong. In fact, I need structure because I don't have any earth in my chart. I need structure. Or else nothing will get done because I'm just in flow. You know, I'm all fire and water in my chart and a little bit of air. Those things, they move constantly. It's like squirrel, and then I'm off to something else. But what I meant by saying that is that, you know, structures for the uninitiated, it didn't mean to throw away structure. What it meant is that once we are initiated in a certain practice or in a certain dimensional field of our life, we fall in love with it, and then structure is out of the window because we just dance with it. We just dance with it. You know, we can see this anytime that you're in love with something. You don't need to be told or reminded to spend time with that person or spend time with that thing or spend time with that subject. You can't wait to come back to it. It doesn't need structure. But yet I do for the things that I'm not as in love with. And because I have 6 fire zodiac signs in my chart, once I do plug my focus into something, my fire then becomes alive for this particular thing. I say all of this because I rarely, let me rephrase that. I rarely talk about my book, Know Thyself, the 7 Dimensions of Wellness. The reason why I do not talk about it much is because I'm so in love with magic that I rather talk about that. The 7 dimensions is how I live in balance. And then the program that I have worked and reworked to fit my personality. And we're talking about years and years of tweaking it and all this. I love that program because it gives me structure. And I explain all the 7 dimensions in my book. And in the last chapter, I talk about this program. But I wanted to share about this program today because going back, I believe it was our first class when we talked about the power of our name. And I mentioned that when I talk to my spirit guides, I say that I'm King Joshua when I feel the need to do so. In order to be a king or a queen, it's not about those blissful connection and joy and love with spirit. It's about you mastering the material world. It's about you mastering your life. And when I follow my 7 dimensions of wellness structure, which I'm going to share with you here in just a minute, I feel like a king. I feel powerful. I'll stand up, and yet I'm only 5'10". I'll feel like I'm 7 foot. There is an immense power that I feel when I keep the promises that I make to myself. And that power makes life delicious. Dr. Frank Vickel, I believe I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I oftentimes switch his last name and his first name, even though he's one of my favorite psychologists of all time. He wrote a very powerful book called The Man's Search for Meaning. And he was a survivor of the concentration camps. And what he observed in his time in the concentration camps was the difference between the ones that survived and the ones that died was that the ones that survived had meaning to live. And so when he came out of the concentration camps, he wrote this book and he created this theory, which was called logotherapy, which basically means meaning therapy. What is your meaning? What is your meaning of life? In my teachings, I say the same thing, but with a different word, a different phrase. I say, what do you want? Because in essence, the reason why human species want to die is because they do not have a meaning for their life. And this meaning, this love for this meaning is not greater than their fear and their separation. I share this with you because my beading is to grow. I love being in the body temple because if I was just a bliss right now and a part of the oneness, like, so what? Yeah, it's great, but you're part of the oneness. Like, there's a reason why we separate from the oneness in order to experience ourselves. In order to create this illusion that we forget what is real, so we could go through this process of remembering. And then in remembering who we are, we then get to create and experience ourselves as God and goddesses by creating our life. This is in essence the root of the manifestation teachings, which are taught so incorrectly. But that's basically, the premise of them is that you can create the life that you want. It is true. It's just that the information has been hidden because those of us that know don't want to share this type of magic with humanity. But that's changing. So it's awesome to be in the human body, to master myself, to master the animal. I fail so many times at this. Oh, do I fail? Like, I'm having a conversation with God in my ceremony for 15 and a half hours. And there are times where God's like, hey, do this and this. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. Like it was a conversation. Like, I was so real with them. I was like, no, that's my human self. That's me failing. And so I try to fail forward, which is why I developed the 7 dimensions of wellness structure for myself, so that I could continue to have structure that will move me forward an inch every single day. And 7, if you all remember, is the number of Josh. I've been working with this 7 dimensions program since I was in high school. It really started because I didn't have a father and I wanted to know what being a man was about. And so at the time I had like 4 structures. And at the time, what I said to myself was, okay, mastering these 4 structures is being a man. And then later it grew to 7. And now I'm at 11. So I'd like to share them with you because at the end of the day, they give me, I, I love this program so much. And again, it's taken years to tweak it, uh, to have it fit my personality. I'm a type A personality, so I could, write 20 different things to do in a day. And over the course of years, I recognized that wasn't uh, practical. So I settled on these 10, and then recently I added 11th to match my numerology number in Joshua. So this is what they are: spiritual, and this is the inner spiritual, by meditation, by spiritual practice within myself, by inner spiritual. And then I have an outer spiritual. I call this spiritual agape, what I'm giving to the world, whether it be money or even doing some type of service for humanity. Then I have my mental, how am I strengthening my mind? Right now, that's about writing, that's about offering classes and doing some type of academia work. Emotional, that for me is paid bills or doing anything that allows my emotional body to be calm. If I don't pay bills or if I don't do certain things, then my emotional body starts getting out of balance. And so anything in the emotional category, is about keeping my emotional body stable. My physical, that is all about working out. And then my physical health, that's about the food I eat. That's about going to bed before midnight. That's about taking my vitamins, and other practices that I do, like acupuncture and getting IVs and things like this. My professional, that's about growing and expanding my business, keeping in communication uh, with the people that I hire to do certain things that I don't like doing. My professional SIVA, that's about staying on top of my text messages, my voicemails, my emails. My financial, that's about checking uh, my accounts each day and making sure that I'm in alignment with what is reality, which I spoke about the last couple of weeks. And relational, for me, that's about calling my family. If I did not have that structure in place, I would not call my family as much as I do. It helps me. And these things are there to help me have balance. And so what I do is every single time I do something in a certain category, I move it up one day. So I'll use Apple iPhone, the reminders uh, thing that they have, and I'll list these 10. And now there's an 11th, but I'll list these 11 down. And once I do one thing in each category, I move it over a day. Now, rarely do I actually do something every day in all these 10 categories, but one day might be focused on professional SIVA or spiritual or whatever it may be. And so if I do 5 things in one day, then that means I'm moving it 5 days forward. And so in the course of time, I get to, have this reflection back to me about where I'm putting my energy. It's really easy for me to focus on the financial. It's really easy for me to focus on the spiritual. But if I don't have the structure in place, then me calling my family in the relational category will fall behind. Potentially my physical body, in terms of working out, will fall behind. And I get to see that. I get to see where I'm falling out of balance. And in this way, this 7 dimensions program reflects back to me where I'm putting my energy. And how I grow in it each and every day is it in the categories of physical, spiritual, and a couple of others, physical health. There's always expansion. There's always more to do. So, for example, one of the things that I've been working on mastering is going to bed before midnight. I'm a natural night owl. I love life. So there's times where I don't want to go to bed because I'm just so excited about life. I'm so excited about the next day that I don't want to go to bed. It sounds ridiculous, but this is what I do from time to time. And there are other times when, on a professional level, I need to stay up, for until 2 or 3 or 4 or pull it all nighter, whether that's because something's happening in the markets or because spirit is just talking to me and I'm so wired from the communication. So what I do, or what I've done when I make these stronger commitments to say, no, I need sleep. I need to be in bed before midnight. Is that I'll start at 12 a.m. And if I go to bed before 12 a.m., then the next day I must now go to bed before 11:55 p.m. But because it's the second movement of growth, meaning I went from 12 a.m., that's the first, then I went to 12:55 p.m., that's the second. Now I need to master that for 2 straight days. Once I accomplish that, then I go to 11:50, now for 3 days. If I can master 11:50 for 3 straight days in a row, then I go to 11:45, and now I must master that for 4 straight days. If I miss a day, then I'm still at 11:45, but it starts over because I must master 11:45 for 4 consecutive days until I can move to 11:40. I do the same thing with intermittent fasting. I start at 12 a.m., but instead of doing 5-minute increments, I do 15-minute increments. This way, I slowly adapt my body to fasting longer. I do this because I've had a relationship with intermittent fasting now for 5 years, and it's inconsistent. I'll go 3 months, going at, fasting for, I don't know, 10 hours, maybe go through, 2 or 3 weeks fasting at 8 hours, things like this. But what allows me to actually have sustained adaptability, sustained growth, is actually not going to these extreme, like, oh, now I'm going to only eat for 8 hours in a day or 10 hours in a day, but actually looking at this being the start of a beautiful canvas that I'm creating, a beautiful life structure that I'm creating. And for it to have a proper foundation means to master it slowly. And the thought process behind this is, okay, I've got a good life right now. I'm healthy. Things are good. So I don't need to go to this extreme type of thing and say, oh, I'm going to go to bed before 11 o'clock every night and then have mixed results. What I've learned throughout the years of working with this program is that for me, small, or I should say, moving an inch every single day over the course of a month, over the course of 3 months, 6 months, and over a year creates an incredible, strong foundation. The Commit to Sit app that I have on the iPhone, that I created this program when I was doing mental health counseling on Skid Row, because the number one thing that I wanted all my clients to do is to meditate. And I had the most success with my clients. People would always ask me, what are you doing differently? I'm having them meditate. But to have someone that has some type of addiction or pathology going on, to have them start meditating, we had to start from square one. So I developed a program, actually Spirit gave it to me, where I just started having them meditate for 1 minute. And if they did that, then they moved to 2 minutes. And they did that, they moved to 3 minutes, and then 4, and then 5. And then when their ego came in to resist, let's say, they had mastered 5 minutes, but on the sixth day, they didn't meditate, they would start all over, but now they would start all over at 5 minutes. And so they'd have to do 5 straight days of 5 minutes. And then on the sixth day, now a 6 minute meditation, then a 7, then an 8, then a 9, then maybe a 10. Resistance comes in. They don't meditate. They start all over. And day 1 through 9, it's all 9 minutes. What we're doing there is we're building the body temple to learn how to sit. What I'm doing with moving 5 minutes, back, with my bedtime, is I'm mastering the discipline to go to bed earlier and earlier. What I'm doing with the intermittent fasting, moving it back 15 minutes each time, is I'm allowing my body to adapt, and also allowing the discipline, the structure, to be implemented in my daily routine. So I share all of this because as my heart was so heavy this morning with the events happening in Israel, and knowing that there will be more events to come if our collective consciousness does not change, ultimately, all that I can do is be the best version of myself that I can be. And so we talked about tools today of connection, nature, a loved one, or doing something you love, having a meaning for your life, i.e., what do you want? And then to become a king and queen and to feel the power of it. To suggest to you to create some type of structure like I have with the 7 dimensions of wellness to help you move an inch every single day. Because as Gandhi says, we must be the change that we want to see in the world. It does no good for us to finger point. It does no good for us to blame. We just have to change, because if we don't, we will die as a group consciousness. So we go back to what we can control, to channel all of the emotions that I'm feeling around the events in Israel right now into fuel for me to make higher choices in each day, breath by breath. And to know that our way of life, as we know it, must never be taken for granted. And so thank you for joining me today. Thank you for all the viewers on YouTube that will be watching this in what we call the future, even though there is no future, there's only the now. I love you all, and may we all rise. And so it is. Any questions? Yes, Viktor Frankl. Thank you, Linda. Does anyone have any questions? Or are you all complete?
If you have a question, you can put it in the chat or you can raise your hand. I have a question.
Yep.
Josh, you mentioned that the 7 dimensions that we know about that are in your book, but you said that you added a few more up to 11. Would you like to share that, or?
Yeah, they're really not new dimensions. They're just subcategories of the 7 dimensions. There's only 7 dimensions in this current consciousness. So that's what I was saying. The spiritual dimension has 2. Because there's the inner spiritual and then the outer spiritual. So what, how am I connecting inwardly, with my own spirit guides and my own self? And then the outer is, what am I, doing for humanity? A lot of spiritual people that have spiritual gifts, they think that because they're psychic or because they can do, healings or whatever, that they are always in this spiritual state. And it's not true. They're only doing the external spiritual work, because there's so many psychics and so many healers. When I ask them, hey, what's your spiritual practice? They don't have one. Or, theirs is very inconsistent. And so they'll experience a state of connection when they're serving humanity, but oftentimes, and inwardly, they have a lot of fog. They don't have a lot of clarity. They actually have a lot of missteps. They're, even though they're the top of their profession, on a healing level or psychic level, they still don't have a lot of money. Like there's, because they're missing the fact that there's the outer and inner, spiritual work that we do, and they both have to be in balance. And it mirrors it. It's the same thing. Where a couple of weeks ago I talked about investing in tithing. The feminine and the masculine. What am I doing for myself first, and then what am I doing for others? And that also must be in balance. And so it's the same thing spiritually. That there must be that inner connection for myself, and then whatever gifts I have that I do for others is what I do for others. But if I don't keep that in balance, then I don't have a blissful life. And there's so many people that are so extremely talented that because they don't do the inner work, mainly because they're lazy, they don't have a blissful life. I mean, because it's part of my soul contract, if I stopped meditating today, I would still be a great psychic, because it's part of my soul contract. Like, it's a gift. It's like, there's nothing I can do to remove my calf muscle. There's nothing I can do to remove my bicep. My soul contract is when humans want to come to me for, to talk to my spirit guides, like, that will always be a yes, whether I meditate or if I don't. And it's the same thing with other people, and whatever they're gifted in. they don't have to meditate or, have some type of inner spiritual practice for their outer practice to exist. However, without an inner practice, your life will not be blissful. Like, it's impossible. And I see this with so many of my friends, so many people I know, is that they wrongly think that because they do so much for so many people, that that's all that they need to do. And it's not true. You got to do the inner work. You always got to, the inner work is, in my mind, the most important. But I also have this deep love for experiencing God consciousness in my physical state. And that's a loaded term, experiencing God consciousness, because there's so many aspects of that. Carrying more light, carrying an awareness, breath by breath, that all of this is an illusion. So, I also have this deep love for that inner growth, and you can't have inner growth without, doing these type of spiritual practices that I do. I mean, you can grow, but at some point you have limitation if you're not connecting with God. Does that answer your question? Oh yeah. So then that was just a spiritual, and then physical. There's the physical activity, but then there's also, what do I put inside my body, and not even inside my body, but just, like deodorant. Like, I love smell. Like, smell, I love so much, and so deodorant, cologne, those type of things, used to always be my way of life. And now I won't even wear deodorant. I'll spray cologne, but I won't even wear deodorant because our body's an organism. So anything that comes in contact, with our organism, you know, having a filter, on your shower head, things like this, your body then absorbs, any type of chemicals and all that type of stuff that's in it. So I stopped wearing deodorant. And I mean, if I'm, going to be social, I might put on some natural deodorant. But my feeling is that if I'm eating healthy, then I won't smell. And that's been my experience. So, um, it's really in all things, but there's so much. And that's why these 7 dimensions really help me, because it allows me, because in essence, I come to square one. Okay, like, what's the most important thing for me to master with my physical health? And ultimately I always come back to showering. Like, I don't feel good energetically unless I shower. Like, I have to do that first thing in the morning after my spiritual practice, because it's like that it's like a energetic cleansing for me, from the day before, to allow me to, start the day with new energy. Anyway, so the way that I got to 11 is that there are a couple of the 7 dimensions that I've created subcategories for, because yeah.
Thank you. That totally makes sense. The subcategories. Sienna has a question in the chat.
The best way to prepare for the first instruction is making meditation, multiple meditations, a priority every single day. And anytime you get insight, act on it immediately. Because you can't really prepare for the first destruction, because it's such a paradigm shift. But so the best way is to really prime your inner knower, your inner wisdom, and practice, like anytime there's insight, practice, immediately do it, because then that is what strengthens the muscle of your intuition, is action. And so the more action you take, the stronger it gets, the louder it gets. So those of us that our souls want us to be on this planet beyond the first destruction, we are going to need to know where to be, where to go, and what to do. And that will only happen through intuition, depending on what our soul's purpose is on this planet. And I do believe that even if our soul wants us, like, I do believe that even if it's in our soul contract to survive the first destruction, and our soul or spirit guides, whatever you want to call it, say, hey, fly to Peru right now, and we don't do it, then we could be wiped out. Because in essence, it's like, oh, well, yeah, my soul contract wanted me to last the first destruction. However, I did not build my consciousness and my inner knower and my intuition to a certain degree that matches the vibration of the new Aquarius age energy that's going to rush in after the first destruction. So again, nothing is given to us. We must work at this. We must say yes to it. We must continually, prepare. And it's a great question, Sienna, because the preparation starts now, so that we know when that voice comes in, that we can say yes to it. And it can't be all of a sudden like, 2049 and the voice comes in and now we're going to finally listen. If we're not listening between this point and 2049, we're not going to listen when the intuition comes in to tell us where to be to survive it, or where to go, or what to do. Those of us that get that intuition will be the ones that the Aquarius age picks to survive the first destruction. But even in the ones that are picked, if we're not listening, then we'll be destroyed too. And that's justice. That's how it should be. Because if you ignore spirit, you are now open to the consequences. So there is no assumption. There is no like, oh, the world needs me. Oh. Spirit, even within myself, spirit has plenty of people around the world that if all of a sudden something happened to me, there would be other Joshua's, Sana Kumaras to fill in. Because this thing's going to happen with or without me. And I had this incredible opportunity to be a part of the evolution. That's all it is an opportunity. And I must want it. Which means I must prepare myself to be a spiritual warrior every single day, every single breath. Do I do that? No. But I'm feeling forward. Anyone else? Okay. All right. Well, I love you all. Thank you so much for joining me in consciousness today. I'm gonna go watch some football. It was a deep morning, man. Like I had to do a lot of prayer, a lot of meditation, a lot of reading. Uh, yeah, and I'll continue to be praying for those in Israel, as well as all of the sentient beings that are just going through so much pain right now. And it doesn't have to be like that, but that's what we've chosen. So, but we have awareness, so we get to choose. And in choosing and being stronger light warriors, then hopefully we can help others wake up. Hmm. Thank you all for being here. All right. I love you all. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. And we'll see you all soon.